Our next speaker is Alan Girardot with Rush Creek Resources. He is the president and CEO of the company. He's an independent oil and Oklahoma oil man. Works for me. An energy entrepreneur who established Rush Creek Resources in 2014. Tough timing, huh? Good timing. During the initial shockwave that most of the recent oil crash. Prior to establishing Rush Creek, he served as a senior executive in both private equity venture management and operations management within the upstream oil and gas sector. He founded Rush Creek to capitalize on the bear market in energy that he believed would facilitate the largest transfer of mineral wealth Americans have seen in generations, and that could very well be true. Alan graduated from Texas Tech University with a BA in political science while simultaneously serving as a United States Marine. So thank you for your service.
Morning, everybody. Hey, SGR, thanks for putting this on and having us out. It's been a quiet year, so I really appreciate you having us and giving us an opportunity to come out here and present. So yeah, my name is Alan Girardot. I'm just going to give a little bit more of an introduction about myself. I'm an energy entrepreneur. I am an oil man. It is primarily my focus. I'm in the upstream sector of this industry. I go out and primarily acquire abandoned oil fields, repurpose them, re-engineer them to continue to produce oil for long periods of time. And that is how I've made my living since 2014. I founded my company during the most recent oil crash in 2014. Obviously, some demand destruction this year, created some volatility in the market, and we experienced another crash this year. But prior to that, in 2014, when oil was well into the hundreds, and we took a very volatile slip all the way down into the high 30s over the course of an 18-month period, was when I founded my company. And I'll share a little bit more about why I did that, how I did that, where I am today, and kind of some of the niche market opportunities that exist in today's current economic climate, in the oil industry. So touching a little bit back on my background, prior to getting involved in the oil and gas business, I was a United States Marine. I come from the ordnance community. If it goes boom, I probably worked on it. Major league door kicking was an awesome job. Loved it. Just wasn't conducive to family life. So when I got out of the service, it was a booming energy sector in Texas, obviously. Had some mentors and some guys that I knew from the service that were really cutting their teeth in the business as private equity investment brokers. So that was where I got my tenure in the oil and gas business while I was working construction as well as sales for one company. I was going to and studying at night for my investment brokers licenses, and got licensed for the Series 22, 63, and 7. So that I could sell direct participation oil and gas programs as a securities broker in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've seen every type of deal there is, from joint ventures, limited partnerships, master limited partnerships. There's no deal, finance structure that I haven't seen as far as upstream goes. My track record at Rush, I'm primarily a growth through acquisitions based company. While wildcatting and fracking and doing all of these things is a part of what I do, I am primarily acquisitions focused. I like to go out, look at cash flows that have historically done well, but for whatever reason are depressed. I do the research, find out what's gone wrong, and then see if I can rehabilitate an asset. Today, I manage just under 100 oil wells. I took this from an idea to 3,000 productive acres held by production under Rush Creek Operating, which is my operating company. I am private equity backed. I do have investors. I've got a significant portion of my capital coming from New York, as well as some private equity managers in Florida. And here most recently, I just made a new field discovery in 2018. I bought 2 abandoned oil fields, drilled in between. I'm currently developing that asset and really refocusing my efforts in Oklahoma as of lately. So my company was founded in 2014. Obviously, growth through acquisitions focus. This picture's a picture of my actual shop up in Oklahoma. I've got a team. It's not just me. I'm the only one here today, but I've got a very good team behind the scenes, comprised of geophysicists, every kind of geoscience profession you can think of, engineers, accountants, attorneys. There's a lot of gray hair behind the scenes. I am only 35 years young in this business. Most guys still call me a pup when they encounter me in this business, but I'm a vertically integrated self-servicing oil company. This is one of my biggest comparative advantages, and I'll get into that. But I'm a significant low-cost producer. I am out there. My day-to-day consists of going out, pumping wells, checking on production, changing belts, replacing electric motors, working on gas engines, running a pulling unit, running a rig, running a winch truck, running a bobtail and a water truck. I do everything. I was able to, at the inception of my company, to drive our costs, lifting costs, average lifting costs from $45 down to $15 over the course of 5 years of vertically integrating my outfit. So while I'm not crash proof, I'm about as close as you can get. So Rush Creek, whenever I look at folks that have oil and gas portfolios, most oftentimes than not, when they're invested in the upstream side of the business, retail investments usually place investment capital in the arena of working interest behind a drill bit. Most people's capital is put behind a drill bit, which is the riskiest part of doing this. If you participate with Rush Creek or any of the projects that I manage or any of the other entities that I consult for, we offer a truly diversified approach to all of our investors. We like to get you involved in working interest. That includes exploration, new drills that carry significant tax advantages. Developmental drilling. I love drilling proven undeveloped locations. Right now the current economics behind oil don't necessarily support that, but with some price increases, developmental drilling is one of my favorite things to do. Royalties. Love buying royalties. Especially in these areas that I traffic. I'll get into that a little bit more. Oil well recompletions. I'm a big fan of recompleting oil wells, low cost, high impact workovers. Recompletions would fall into that. I love going back into old oil wells and finding oil where it's already been found. These are low cost, high impact workovers that can generate revenue streams upwards to $1,000 to $5,000 a month, with risks taken anywhere between $5,000 to $25,000 depending on what you're trying to fix. But low cost, high impact workovers is how I built my bread and butter, and the lion's share of the production that I own outright, that I don't have investors in. It was going out, acquiring what people would call junk or lost production, shut-in production, and rehabilitating. And then production acquisitions. Like I said, I love going out, acquiring cash flows, especially those that are distressed, that stand to be increased through a small capital infusion. And that's another thing that you can get involved with here as an investor with Rush Creek. Everything you see here is mine. I don't owe the bank a thing. I did it all organically, did it all myself with a few partners that helped me finance me along the way. From 2016 on, every time I would buy an oil field and I would flip it, I would take my profits and I grew this company and vertically integrated it very tax advantagely, sinking all of my own cash into it because the banks wouldn't lend. So while I own everything to reduce my lifting costs and operate under a safety net of fixed costs on the back end, which is usually what makes this business scary in the first place, I'm free and clear of the bank. I don't owe anybody any money. So just shedding a little bit of light in case you've never done any kind of direct participation programs before, I just want to shed some light on how the tax benefits work behind the drill bit, because generally speaking, this is what you see. But this is just an example. I can go into this at great length if anybody has any questions after this class about how tax deductions work, investing behind the drill bit. But just round lot figures, we average, if you look at my portfolio and the intangible drilling costs associated with what we do, we average about an 80% IDC deduction annually on what we do for our investors. So somebody that puts in $100,000, you get an $80,000 write-off. Your true cost of ownership would be determined for your own, that's going to be subjective for your own tax situation. Obviously, depending on what your tax bracket is, the write-off will manipulate your income against any passive portfolio direct income you have, and your true cost of ownership will be determined on how much money we actually save you in taxes after you take the write-off. The remaining tangible component of what we do is depreciated over 5 years, straight line depreciation. So I help investors all the time. I'll give you a key example. I'm currently in the process of helping two gentlemen out of New York that have sold a commercial property. They're trying to evacuate their wealth from New York to Texas and Oklahoma. I'm dealing with another gentleman out of California that just sold a company, trying to mitigate his tax liability, not pay the significant taxes that he's going to on the asset sale of his company. And we're trying to reduce those tax liabilities through oil and gas investing. So as life throws you events, whether those be liquidity events, whether you're a high earner, whatever it is, if you need tax savings and you are not putting any kind of money behind the drill bit, I strongly advise you to do your research and potentially do so. Tax advantages continued. So not only do you get to, take a write-off, but 15% of what we do and what we produce is tax-free. So you're only paying taxes on 85 cents on the dollar that you earn through direct participation. Upwards of 30%, upwards of a 30% allowance is allowed depending on whether you have a qualifying enhanced oil recovery project, which is what I do, and I'll get into that here in a minute. 1031 exchanges are applicable to oil properties. These are real properties that you can invest in. People move money from real estate into oil, from oil into real estate, doing 1031 exchanges all the time. And I do know custodians that can help you do that. And like I said, again, you can mitigate liquidity events throughout your lifetime investing in oil. It is a very, very good tool. Just to give you an idea of what I do, and these are economics supported at a $50 oil market. Obviously, this is not current, to reflect the current economic state of oil. But just to give you an idea of cash flows that can beat the market, obviously the bank is not giving you anything for putting your money into CDs, and the market. I don't know why it's doing so good right now. It's crazy to me. Maybe somebody can educate me on that afterwards. But when oil is at $50 and you are a low cost producer like me, these cash flows can be very, very absorbent. And I like to use these basement production figures just to shed a little bit of light on what these production potentials are. And these are all things that are verifiable through lease operating statements. I have 8/8 accounting numbers to show you what revenues and what expenses actually look like on a well at today's prices, given these economics. But it does get better at 50. A stripper oil well is defined as any oil well that does under 20 barrels a day on the North American continent. Statistics show that 90% of oil wells on the North American continent are stripper. 90% of them. You drill a well, it is overwhelmingly not in your favor that thing's not going to be stripper. It is going to be a stripper well more than likely when it settles in. So mitigating the costs associated with producing your barrels of oil once your oil well has taken a decline is where my strength is. If you notice the operating expenses on both of these scenarios at $1,350 per load produced, that's cheap. That shakes out to under $15 a barrel. On a 5 barrel a day well, given $50 economics and what my associated listing costs are in Oklahoma, I have been able to generate my partners just shy of 15% consistently. On a 10 barrel a day well, the APY pushes up to 33% APY at $50 a barrel. Now, I don't like to show folks what the realm of possibility is or that I do, because if I put a 30 or a 40 barrel a day well on here, you're going to call me a liar. So I don't even show you that. But that is what, kind of the expectation is in the areas that I'm trafficking. This is what it looks like after it settles in, but understand cash flows can be substantially larger at the beginning of these, assets' lives. So emerging opportunities in energy finance, I think this is an important thing to touch on, because there is a significant divide between guys like me that want a piece of the oil patch, that want to secure mineral wealth for themselves and their families, and how you get to there. Mezzanine finance, in case you're not familiar with that, this is a approach where it is high interest money that is allotted to guys like me. Usually lenders want something of an interest rate in the mid-teens percentage range, along with a sliver of equity upon debt servicing. And the debt servicing terms can be atrocious for a guy like me. It can be a death sentence if something goes wrong. You're talking about 3 to 4, maximum 5-year terms. And so this is not an attractive opportunity. As a matter of fact, there's not a whole lot of guys doing this. This has become a very highly scrutinized process, and accessing capital for small independent producers like myself is very, very difficult. Reserve-based lending is another practice that is gone. It's dead. You cannot be an independent like myself going into a bank and borrow money against your reserves. The bank's just simply not going to lend. So private equity has to bridge that gap. I grew my company private equity backed. I know several other companies like mine that are not private equity backed that are looking for funding. There are phenomenal opportunities that are asset backed where private equity can engage these companies that need these types of lending services, and whoever can bridge that divide stands to make a lot of money. I'm not saying that it's going to be me, but if you're a private equity investor and you have private companies looking for financing, they have good ideas, feel free to retain my information after this. I'll always give you an objective opinion on what I think of a project, but private equity is going to have to fill this gap, or there's going to be a lot of assets lost. Will independence be the same? Truthfully, I don't know. I know I'm 35 years old. I know 4 other guys in this business that are my age that are trying to be small cap independent producers. They're guys that are out there trying to build a portfolio, to build it into something that they can sell. And the fact is that constraints on lending and a lack of financing opportunities for guys like me has really it's cold our industry. There's not a lot of players left. So I don't know that independent oil is ever going to be the same. You know, especially after this oil crash. I think that 2014 it sorted out wolves and sheep in this sector, and I think that a lot of folks were hanging on by a thread before the coronavirus hit. I've been fortunate enough to you know, make all the moves that I needed to actually be able to survive this, and my company actually grew. Believe it or not, I grew my company by 1,000 acres this year. I picked up another 10 oil wells, and I'm getting ready to drill here fourth quarter, you know, to combat my decline curves. But that's not the story that you're hearing every day. People are going under. Baby boomers and silent generationers are being forced to work longer because there's just not the financing there available for those guys like myself to succeed their assets. So for a few guys like me that are private equity backed, the sky's the limit. There's no competition. It's as far as I want to take this thing, as big or as little as I want to be. Energy policy and conventional oil. So obviously the political climate in our country is pretty crazy right now. Everybody's kind of wondering what the outcome of all this stuff's going to be. This is not, I am not albeit I've got my degree in political science. I'm not a political scientist. I'm not a policy writer, but I can tell you how I have been, you know, navigating this and what I'm preparing for. You know, geopolitical destabilization, this always happens every time we change hands in the Oval Office. Enemies are always emboldened. You have rogue actors in the geopolitical community. Something will pop off. Somebody, you know, this was not going to be a good year for oil despite coronavirus. If you recall, the Saudis and the Russians were playing a giant game of chicken and had thrown their steering wheels out the window right before coronavirus hit. And they were talking about flooding the market and creating such a significant surplus of crude in the swing market that it would have driven prices down regardless. So, you know, look for geopolitical destabilization to create some market opportunities and hopefully increase the prices of oil. What I've learned about OPEC in 2020 is these guys are not unreasonable, right? You know, when we all play for team humanity, when 26 million barrels a day of demand destruction was occurring here second quarter of this year, people got a reality check and became reasonable very, very quickly. So I think one thing we can look at is you know, we saw some cooperation. If that's a positive that we can take from this, then I'll take that from it. But hopefully what we'll see is a little bit more cooperation. You know, if there is a fracking ban imposed on federal lands, that's going to grant OPEC market share from you know, domestic market share and hopefully increase prices, which only helps the conventional guy like me. You know, my lifting costs are fixed and they're low. So if a barrel of, you know, the price of a barrel of oil increases, then it only stands to help me. So conventional oil players, shallow oil players look for value to grow in areas like the Fort Worth Basin and forgotten basins like East Texas, forgotten basins like northeastern Oklahoma. There's a lot of areas where you're going to see net present value profile of acreage significantly increase, and these are areas that have been forgotten here recently over the last 5-6 years. Anybody have any questions upstream or any questions in general about my model and what I do at all? Yes, sir. I do have drilling programs. My current drilling inventory is completely full. New York and Florida has gobbled it up as things open up. I've met STR through utilizing the money show, and we've got a long list of people that pretty much gobble up what we do. But that being said, I'm actively, and maybe this is good to put out here for this audience, but I'm actively looking for partners to potentially finance other companies. I know of companies that stand to be acquired. I know of other companies that have phenomenal drilling acreage, albeit I don't necessarily want to be the operator of it. But I've partnered with a couple guys that have an interest in being that lending source, bridging that gap for these companies that I've told you about that don't have lending opportunities. And partnering with me as an operator and doing something like that, we can always have the safety net of knowing that should somebody default, if we lend them the money, I can always assume operations under my blanket. So that's what I'm looking to do moving into 2021, because what I've done in Oklahoma, I'm not I'm pretty much done. I can produce what I've got up there for the next 30 years and retire off of it. I don't need to.
But you're really not looking for drilling program. You're looking for.
I'm looking to currently what Rush Creek's drilling inventory is completely sold out.
Okay.
I do have some acquisitions up my sleeve that I'm toying with, but the price is not right. I've got to let these people bleed a little bit more before I come in and try to stop the bleeding and acquire. But I do know of 3 other guys like me that have phenomenal opportunities, and I'd be interested in doing a joint venture type of situation with some folks that are maybe looking for these types of capital, write-offs and things of that nature. But if you are looking for drilling opportunities, I know where to find them. Yes, sir.
Any advantage of Anadarko Basin versus in Texas Permian Basin that you have seen?
Speaking specifically to those basins, I'm not active in those basins. I'm not boots on the ground. I do know this. I know acreage costs in West Texas are completely insane, and I have no business being there. As big as Exxon is big, I am small. Makes sense? So I have no place being there. As far as the small guy like me, I tend to lean towards Oklahoma. Reason being is they're not as funded up there. The regulations are significantly looser. It is very political. I don't mind that. Texas, it's getting tougher to be a small independent producer. Regulations are getting a little bit tougher, especially now that revenue is depressed on the state because of oil being where it's at. When things like this happen and you see a price slide, regulations and constraints on operators are not loosened up. They're tightened up because they're trying to squeeze us for more money through regulations. So, and that's not, in Texas has afforded me a lot of opportunity. I've made a lot of money in Texas, but it's been harder to make money in Texas than it has for me in Oklahoma. I'm actually in the process currently of divesting my entire Texas portfolio. That was my plan in 2020. Was actually planned on listing second quarter right as coronavirus hit. So that delayed my plans just a little bit. My intention is to evacuate all my capital from Texas to Oklahoma simply because I can't be in 2 places at once, and I can do what I do a lot cheaper, without running around and really focusing in one area. So for me being the little guy, I tend to lean towards Oklahoma. If good opportunities in Texas, I'll take opportunities in Texas, but I've made plenty of money here. I'm trying to focus on my stuff up there because I really did hit a little diamond in the rough in 2018. Yes, but I do strictly conventional drilling, but I do have some unconventional things that I do in my completion methods. Some of these slick water fracs, crosslink polymer gel fracs, I'm utilizing unconventional methods in conventional production, in conventional assets, which it really drives up the recovery factor of what I'm doing. Give you an example, I'm drilling a field that was an old nitroglycerin field in the 1950s where, literally dynamite was dropped down these holes to stimulate them, and you would have 50 barrel a day wells. Well, very, very inefficient. It's estimated that, 2 mineral acres can be drained with the nitroglycerin stimulation done back in the 50s, whereas today, a little $25,000 frac that, is a crosslink polymer gel frac that suspends sand and carries it out into the formation is significantly more efficient, will drain 40 acres. So unconventional methods have played a role in the conventional game. It is a part of my business model. Is it the lion's share of what I do? No. The lion's share of what I do is enhanced oil recovery, re-engineering, repressurizing oil fields, water floods, things of that nature.
Anybody else with a question? Well, unless you have anything else to say.
I don't, man. Thanks for having me. That's it. Thank y'all. Thank you for your time.